just basically saying, hey, I'm looking for some improvements around process on from when the machine arrives in the warehouse from the vendor, called, put in warehouse to dispatch for setup is done, etc.
Right. Basically what we have going is we have a situation where we've been working with our dispatch, and we have a new machine comes in the door, or even a recon machine that's used machine, and basically it comes in. We have been setting up a call for this machine to be set up or recon by a technician. Then when that's done, then we need to get the machine installed, and we're just wanting to make sure that when we're kind of doing our stats, when we're looking at our numbers, and what's the best way to handle it in eAutomate with either new calls or leave calls open, or what are other dealers doing that to handle this whole process of a brand new machine, getting it from the dock to the customer in eAutomate.
Okay, well, good. We've got a couple of our clients now using what we used here in eAutomate, and you're definitely heading down the right path. The dispatch, to me, it has more functionality than we really require from a logistics delivery standpoint, but there's no reason in the world why you can't use it. So the trick, though, is most people don't want those numbers to skew their technician productivity reports and things like that, right?
Right.
They don't want to follow their calls per day. They don't want to do this, or that. Well, there's a couple of things built into eAutomate that help with that. eAutomate, you create your call types. And when you create your call types, they have these call type codes that eAutomate that are system defined. And if you say we have corrective maintenance calls, the key thing to remember there, corrective maintenance calls impact your response time. They are used to calculate response time. So if the call type, if you're doing any kind of response time reports in eAutomate, you typically filter only corrective maintenance calls. Then you have courtesy calls, which basically are just scheduled calls for technicians. Install pickup, which is what we will use for what you're doing here. And then you have other, phone fix, preventative maintenance, and shop call. Now, at SOS, we don't go through the exercise of having our shop techs create the service call because it has merely has to do with the fact that our shop manager is not concerned about productivity of his shop techs because if you came to our facility, his office literally is an office built into the rebuild shop area. So they work right outside of his door with the window. He can see everything that's going on there. So he doesn't have to worry about keeping track of that those our 3 shop techs are being productive because they sit right there. He has his door open. He can see them to the window. He hears everything going on. So there's no need for any kind of heavy-duty reporting from his standpoint. And he just felt like it created more work for his technicians to close calls and to touch their calls for every time they touched a machine. Then it was worth for him because he would never run the report because he didn't care. I see them out here. I know they're working. I don't have to run a report. And that made sense, and that was good. So, operationally, we didn't need that. Other dealers, though, have a lot of techs that come in out of the field that do both, they'll do shop work and field work. Well, in that case, you probably need to have those shop guys, those field guys enter their tickets like you're doing for any time they're working on a machine, even in the shop, because our field guys, we do hold accountable for their time. We want to see everything they're doing and what they're doing. And so that makes sense from that standpoint. Secondly, when we rebuild a machine, we're not concerned about associating all the rebuild costs, the labor, all the parts with that specific serial number. One of the reasons behind that is that our shop, financially, all of our shop technicians' labor is booked against the sales department, not the service department. So there's no reason for us to pad the cost of the shop labor time into the cost of a machine because we've already hit the sales department for that. So since that particular, all of those people back there are an expense to the sales department, then we don't need to charge the sales department as a cost of sale on that particular machine. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I'm not saying these are the right way or wrong way. I'm just saying why we can get away with that here at where we operate, because we're booking the costs and the expenses on the backside through the financials. So once again, so when it comes to us for the net of we're working on a rebuild of a machine, you know, we'll take we have a warehouse called Setup Shop. So any parts that the setup shop needs, any supplies the setup shop needs, whether it's a new install or rebuild or whatever, we transfer those parts into the setup shop, and then at the end of the day, at the end of the month, we just write off all of everything in that warehouse gets written off and charged to the sales department.
Okay.
So that's how we consume the cost of the parts. Once again, it's a lump entry to the sales department going, we've spent $10,000 rebuilding machines for you this year, you know, this month, and you know, toner and supplies and stuff for setup. So that's how we do that. Now I don't know if you do you go through the pain of trying to do the eAutomate and pain may be the wrong word, but you go through the hoops of the eAutomate you know, build process, where you actually, you know, charge time tickets and materials against the cost of a machine, and have eAutomate go update the cost of that serial number so that serial number is carrying a new cost, and yada yada yada.
Yeah, yes, that's the way we do that. We do it with labor, and we do it with initial setup supplies.
Okay.
That's how we do that. Yep.
And then you book that against the. Do you go in and update the cost of the equipment on that equipment, or are you just making a service call charged against the sales department or against the contract?
That refurb process is adjusting the cost of the equipment.
Okay.
So we're hitting the cost of the equipment, and one of the reasons we chose to do that, one was because we're new to the eAutomate, and that process seemed to make sense.
Right.
And two is that we might refurbish a machine that is a popular machine, and that machine may not get sold for, you know, another period or two.
Right.
And so we refurbish it today, that cost adjusted, and then we don't need to worry about it.
Okay. Well, good. All right. Well, either way, the process is the same inside of when we get to this delivery piece here of using the service calls. So then I guess the question you were saying is that now your shop guys have brought a machine and you finished rebuilding it, and the delivery phase. How do we handle the delivery? Well, it depends on if they are rebuilding it for immediate delivery or if they're not. I would, to not skew your technicians' reschedules and callback numbers. And do you use shop technicians 100%, or do you have field guys that come in and backfill and do? And because a lot of times, you know, people use their field guys to do the rebuilds because they're the best rebuild techs.
We're 100% field. We don't have any in-shop, in-house guys.
So then your shop guys come in, and your field guys have to come in and do the shop work. So they're filling both hats.
That is correct. Yep.
Okay. So the number one thing is, and hopefully you guys are doing this for your shop tickets, you're using a service code that is either a call type that's associated to the call type shop or to install pickup, either one of those two, ideally shop. And so it's whatever call type you use, as long as you're using the call type is associated with this service category, you know, with that category right there, then that should take care of the like our CEO Jewish technician productivity reports, et cetera, because we only pick up corrective maintenance and preventative maintenance calls. Now, there may be an issue for you. We may have to tweak that report for you to pick up these shop calls so that you can get a full view of the technician's times, and we'll address that for you in a different call. We can take care of that.
We are, Michael, we are doing it this way. We've got, it's not quite as in-depth as you've got, but we are using the call type code of shop call and install on there. So,
okay, perfect. All right. Well, so we'll pick up with the install steps of how to track the deliveries. The best to track to that. So you can see what we did is just for reporting purposes to be able to use a lot of eAutomate's canned reports. I'm an old school, you know, a lot of times eAutomate's reports will give you the choice to run by a range, right? So if I go look at service and I want to run the particular calls by technician, you know, I always have that option to run for a range of calls, you know, starting with Z and ending with ZP or whatever. And so that's why I created all of our call types that we use in this particular instance here to start with the Z, because I wanted it to be easy to run a range of reports. So it's just old school trying to make things work like that.
Yep.
And then we created ZD. So these are all the delivery type of calls we could do for our trucks, right? And then we have ZP, as in pilot, for the pickup stuff. So because we're tracking both sides, it's highly likely and that most of the time a delivery call involves a pickup at the same place. So we have pickup, and we have the call types. For example, pickup, exchange, sales, pickup, exchange, service. That's where the service managers decided we're exchanging the equipment versus the sales manager decides we're exchanging it. Pick up a loaner, deliver a loaner, delivery of install, pick up of install, et cetera, et cetera. Pick up SOS zones, pick up for storage. These are particular calls, when you're picking up trade-in equipment. Well, trade-in is the wrong word. You're picking up equipment, and we have to know when it gets back here, are we supposed to send this back to the leasing company for the customer, or is this one that we're picking up to rebuild, right?
Yep.
And when we pick them up, by the way, just as a side note, we do not put anything into inventory just because we pick it up. We track it through the equipment history tracking using a status, and then the shop, once the machine gets back here, the shop manager then will look over the machine to decide if it's one that's worth being rebuilt or not, and at that point we move it into inventory once we decide we are actually going to pull it in. So we do our quote-unquote trade-ins for rebuild. We do those through an inventory adjustment after the shop has reviewed it versus the alternate would be bring everything into inventory, see if it's worth building, and write it off if it's not. We'd much rather not hit our financials till we were sure we wanted it versus dirtying up the financials with a bunch of stuff that may not be worth anything. So you can create those, and it sounds like you're already using that, so that's excellent. And so then what we do is we'll typically create a call for delivery, and if it's a new install, like the sales rep has well, let's get back to the sales order. And so we get back into here. So we have a sales order that we would create, and of course when we create the sales order for a piece of equipment, we don't know what the serial numbers are. So our sales reps use Digital Quote Manager. They turn in the paperwork from Digital Quote Manager to the our admin department. Once our admin department determines we have a billable deal, then they will turn those work orders over to our logistics people, which starts the delivery process. So we'll create the sales order, and we also, and don't know if this is something that may pertain to you, we use a lot of custom properties to track the status of that sales order through the deal.
Yes,
and
we do this. We've got a lot of custom properties. Yep.
Yeah. So good. Okay. So that's just use of all the, and every dealer could have 5. Some people, you can see we have a boatload. It's like I eliminated 10 spreadsheets. I'm not a big fan of spreadsheets when it comes to trying to keep track of stuff. So we create the sales order in there, and then we're able to once it's a billable deal, which means we have everything necessary to build a leasing company, then we send it out for delivery. We got tired of chasing our sales reps and delivering equipment before they had all the signatures in place. So we come back into the dispatch console, and I've already created this call, but we would create a new call, and we create it for an unknown piece of equipment, right? And we do that, and if there's 10 machines, we'll create 10 unknown pieces of equipment up here. Because at this point, the logistics person has no clue of what serial numbers the warehouse is going to pull to fill that order, right?
Right.
So, so the unknown piece of equipment creates the call. We have the call type, delivery, install, and what we've done with our trucks, we've created, our trucks are set up as technicians. So we have priority codes set up, and we have trucks set up. And if you look at our trucks, we have, let me see here. Let me get the little list here just so you can see we set them up here. We run 3 trucks here, and then we also have outside trucks, which means it's a third-party company that's coming to pick it up, blah blah blah. But initially, right now, at this point in time, we don't even know what truck we're going to assign it to. So we don't know when it's going to go. We don't know what truck it's going to assign to. Down here, we'll put when the sales rep expects it to go by. But that's not a guarantee at this point, right? We have no, until the shop pulls the machine in and starts to rebuild it or starts to put it together, it's still an up in the air of when exactly it's going to go. But we still put the what time we think we're going to get it there, and this is the time we shoot for. So then the shop, so the shop goes out in the inventory, and they decide the piece of equipment that they want us to fulfill, and they'll go out there and pick that machine. They'll write on the, we have a piece of paper that we hand them that we print out a digital quote manager, and so they'll write on that work order the serial numbers that they're going to use for this particular deal, and they'll turn that back into the shop. But when they do that, let me make sure I picked the right. I've had everything set up before it all got deleted, so let's get to our sales order here. Make sure I picked the right machine to match what we're selling here. And it's an Image Runner Advanced. And that is 3614B02. Well, if I can remember here, what model was it? A C5051. Ooh, we got some. Good. So we'll take that piece of equipment now, and you can see it's booked to the copier company here, and that's where that piece of equipment is sitting because it's in stock, it's in inventory. And we'll take that. Did I write down the equipment number here that we were using? Did you write it down, Deb? Happen to write it down? Because I built the sales order to match, with all the attachments to it. And I've got a bunch of notes here. 3614. It was one of these. 3641A, 2AA, 2AA. That's it right there. Good. All right. So what we'll do is the warehouse then transfers that piece of equipment, and we use sales reps. We have a warehouse for each sales rep. And the reason we have that is that we want to keep track as deals process through the through the life cycle. We want to know, and this was an inventory control issue. When the warehouse moves it to the sales reps warehouse, as part of our process internally, we tell our SSAs who do the billing, when you're doing the sales order, when you go to fulfill that sales order with the serial numbers, do not fulfill anything that's not in the sales reps warehouse. Because if you do, then the warehouse may not have really transferred it, which means the warehouse may not have used that particular serial number you think they used, you know what I'm saying, blah, 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 blah. So we just use that as a control so that the billing department doesn't just grab stuff and make typo errors by picking the wrong serial number for the wrong sales order for the wrong sales rep. That's where we found most of our inventory issues were in the past, was strictly just key punch errors on picking the wrong serial number, and then you go to build the right one, and you've got two serial numbers crossed, and you end up voiding a whole bunch of invoices and service contracts to get serial numbers straightened up. So we do that only as an exercise to help control what we're doing with what equipment's going where. Let me make sure I got that take that from the main warehouse. Now, in this particular case, I didn't transfer it, so I didn't fill the sales order out from that sales rep's warehouse. So we'll just leave him alone, and but we would, as part of that transfer step though, we would change the status. So one warehouse bin, and we're going to pick the, which one was it? The GM 14433. GQM. I am picking that machine. Oh, there it is. Duh. Okay. And we use the equipment logging. And here we change the status to be install picked. And when I change that, we have the equipment history tracking set where we assign it to the customer. So the warehouse goes ahead and assigns it to the customer that this is going to go to. And it was ABC Company right there. Okay. And you know, we have to give it a meter reading, which I don't know, so I cheat and put something in, and I'll let it tell me what's wrong. $110,955. Right. $19,726. So we click OK with this. It's going to transfer all the accessories automatically to that warehouse, and it's going to assign the same status. And we just fast forward through all these. So now, even though the equipment is still in inventory, that equipment basically has been moved to the technician's warehouse, to the sales rep's warehouse, and it has a different status. You know, the status now is no longer available. The status has been changed to demo install, and so we can get it in there. And it went away because I changed it up there. So now that piece of equipment is showing at the ABC Company, and it has a status of install picked. And so then at this point, the warehouse guys, they have if it's a new machine, Darren, it's, you know, everything's still in the box. They kind of shrink wrap it, and they'll stack it over by the shop door, and they'll put that piece of that paperwork on top of it, so that when the shop techs come out to grab it, everything is in that pile that needs to go with that machine. All the accessories that were picked with it, everything is sitting there. So
Yep, that's what we do. Yep.
So the shop guys the shop or techs pull that equipment in then, and at this point they turned the equipment. This piece of paper has been turned back into the logistics person. So now she'll come in here and she'll take that call with that unknown piece of equipment. She'll come back in here and she'll type in the what was that 23325 23325, right? And we replace that unknown piece of equipment, and now the call has that equipment on there. So now we know, yeah.
One thing I noticed here right off the bat on this screen is one issue we're having is when the equipment comes in, and we do it a little different. I'm totally tracking on how you're doing this, but we do it a little different. Mm-hmm. And when that equipment comes in off the truck, it's attached, we have it linked through the purchase order, and it gets put on the sales order, and that's all great. But the company name is our company name that's listed as the owner of that equipment.
Right.
So then what we need to do, because I'm looking right here, and it says, you know, equipment, it says ABC Company on it. That's great, but how do we maintain that? I mean, we go in and we'll change it to the customer, and it's still showing in the warehouse and all that stuff. Is that what we need to do?
Yeah, no, I'll show you what you're going to do then. That's part of the equipment history tracking. So you guys are using equipment history tracking?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So all that is I basically told equipment history tracking, and we'll go here to tools and listing codes, and we're going to go to equipment history tracking. And this is particular metered equipment. So when you set this up there, I've told it when I am changing the status, and I'm changing the status of equipment to delivery install. So in the events and transactions, I'm doing if I'm doing a manual status change, I've told it. Then if you're changing the manual status, and the status is being changed to where's it at? Install picked, then they have to give me the customer lookup. So whoever changes it assigns the customer right then and there. So that's why we have it as part of our warehouse step. So at the warehouse guys, they're the ones that pull in the equipment, and I didn't want them to go through the pain, because right now in the current version of eAutomate, it's not very fun to try to put serial numbers on a sales order that has multiple machines with multiple accessories. It's kind of, you're all over the place.
Yeah, that's very true.
Right, so we decided, you know what, the warehouse guys, you just go transfer it to the sales rep's warehouse. That, for all intents and purposes, that's basically we're basically reserving that serial number now. It's now out of the main inventory, so nobody else can sell it. And then when I have installed picked, I tell them you're going to have to tell me the customer. So I selected the attribute as a customer lookup whenever a manual status change happens. Also on transfer of equipment, we have the same thing. I need a meter reading, but if you're transferring with this status of install picked, you got to give me a customer, and you got to give me a bill code. Now, if you notice in the bill code, we have the bill code set up. If this is going out as an install or even as a demo, we force the bill code to always be a non-billable bill code. So if we deliver this machine, and we have a whole process built around that too, Darren. When we deliver the machine to the customer, the last thing we want to do is get a service call a day or two later. We may not have the contract set up yet. We don't want them to ding them for supplies or service, which is the worst thing you do for a new customer, right?
That is correct.
So we assign all of our new deliveries, all of our demos in the equipment history tracking. I force the change of that equipment to a non-billable code.
Okay.
All right. So so all part of that process. That's how we so it's in that step that we assign that customer ID. When I transfer that piece of equipment to that text warehouse back here, that's when it popped up and asked me for a customer. Well, because we provided the warehouse with a work order that had the customer name on it, they're the best ones to make that qualification.
No, here's where it comes in though. What's happening for us, and maybe I just need to tweak that tracking a little bit, because I've played with that a little here. But when delivery comes off the truck into our warehouse, and we're not a huge company here. I look at some of the positions or people you're even talking about. I'm like, well, that person does this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so we don't. I don't see us going to the. I understand your concept, but I don't see us going to the idea of having warehouses for our sales reps. We're just not big enough.
Sure.
But here's how it works for us: is when it comes off the truck and that PO is received in. Because that PO is linked to a sales order, which is working well for us, it automatically moves that equipment to allocated. In other words,
it does.
So in that situation, then I don't need to worry about sticking it into a sales warehouse because it's been allocated. Are you suggesting then when we put that service call up to say, hey, the equipment's here, go ahead and get a service call set up so we can get a technician on that equipment to get it all assembled? At that point, is that when you're saying change the customer name? Okay.
Yes. Yep. So I see what you're saying. So yeah, what you would do is just have your warehouse guys right-click and do a manual status change. They would change the status to install picked or whatever, and just tell them. And then, by the way, you got to give me the customer that it's going to.
Yep.
And I'll give you some details of why we do this in a second. I'll show you how we will try to catch this on the backside. But so once we set up that call, once you've got everything done, and by the way, we don't use the linking purchase order because we buy in bulk. So we have a warehouse full of serial numbers, so that's why we don't. Your way of doing the linking is when you order a piece of equipment for a sales order, that is the ideal, optimal method because it's a one-to-one relationship. That's a beautiful thing to do. You're doing that excellent. So.
Correct. We would love to buy in bulk, and we're hoping to get there someday.
Yeah. Well, we'll sell you some. So anyway.
Talk offline about that.
Yeah, exactly. I can't record this, by the way. You don't be listening, Rico. Okay. So yeah. So anyway, we have the date received in, date returned back, different things back there. So depending on what the status are. So we use these equipment history tracking statuses extensively with custom properties on the equipment even to track lease returns and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so you would just create the service call when you receive the equipment. That's when I create the service call when my sales rep turns in the paperwork, because I need to go ahead and get that call on the board. I want to know that that board's out there. And if you notice, that's why we have that truck called truck unassigned. Well, we don't know where it's going to go yet, so we stick everything that has not been built and ready to roll in that truck unassigned. And we don't assign it to a truck until basically the shop rolls it out and says we're ready. And then we say, okay, it's going to go tomorrow, and it's going to be the third stop. Our sales reps always want to know, well, what time they're going to be there? I don't know. He's got 10 machines to deliver sometime between 8 a.m. and so when we let's say that they have turned this in now, and they say, okay, this machine's ready to roll, ready to be built. Then we'll come in here on the day before when the truck drivers come in with the logistics person, and they'll sit down and say, okay, I want this to go to. I'll take this one tomorrow. Let me find my trucks again. And it's going to be truck number 1. And he'll look and say, I think I'll make this my stop number 1, my first stop. So we use the priorities to set the stop, and we do all of this only so we can print out a manifest for the truck drivers.
Yep, and we don't have, again, we're not big enough here either where we're running a delivery team. We're actually just debating now on getting a shop tech,
Oh, okay. Sure.
We're just getting to that point growth-wise.
All right, but that's all we use the stops for, is because we can't use the times, because really we don't know when this guy's going to get there, because he may get the first machine, he may be stuck there 4 hours. So we just track it as stop 1, it's the second stop, third stop, fourth stop, and I do that only so I can print a manifest for the truck drivers every morning that says here are your stops for the day with the details. Right. So that's the only reason we use that. So then we go through that, and then the truck drivers then will close. They'll work that call just like a technician. They call us back and say, okay, close this call, and here's my start time, stop time, here's my arrival time. We're toying with the idea of giving the truck drivers remote tech so they can be completely self-managed. And so when we finish this and we complete this call, we have an alert that then sees when this call has been closed, and if it's a delivery install call, then we send an email with all the information to the sales person, and we let them know that, hey, this order's now been closed and your equipment's been delivered. Now, we also send it as soon as it's scheduled to a truck, but here's the trick. Inside of service calls, there is no way to associate a sales rep to a service call, and there's no way currently to associate a sales order to a service call, and it's not even there in version 8 yet. So we had to, we toyed around with, like, how do I create an alert so I can send, because what I wanted to do is basically what we do is at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we send an email to the sales rep, and we tell them, here's everything scheduled for you tomorrow. We have these deliveries scheduled. We have these pickups scheduled. We're picking up all these equipments tomorrow. If you have a problem with this, you need to let somebody know now, not tomorrow when the truck's already left, right?
Yep.
So the only way I could come up with doing that is we created a job. And so I can assign a job. So I'll create a new job out here, and I'll give it a new job. And I created one job for every sales rep. So I'm going to create one here just for now. I don't think we did this one yesterday, did we?
I think we did set up Big Red.
Did we Big Rep? Well,
or Big Rep.
I don't see him. Yeah, we didn't set him up.
Oh.
I wanted to go through the steps of how to set them up. And this, you'd say, like, God, that's a pain in the butt. It is, but luckily I don't hire more than 3 sales reps a month, so it's not a big deal.
Right.
But once I set them up, I'm just using as a way associated. So in this particular case, copier company, that's who this job is for, and this would be your dealership, right?
Okay.
And this would be big old sales rep. Gary loves this. And then in the contacts here, I actually create I have to create a contact in the Automate for my employees. And the only reason that is that I can only associate contacts to jobs. I can't associate employees. So it's like, okay, it's a pain, but it's a low-level pain.
Yep.
But the reason I do that is that in this record, I can put the sales rep's email address. So really what I'm trying to get to is a way to automatically find from the service call who's the sales rep I'm supposed to tell about this information anytime something happens, right? So I create the jobs, and I go through these steps for my sales reps, and I create them out there. So now on this call, I can tell the sales rep when it's scheduled. I can tell him when it's going to be delivered. I can tell him when the delivery call is closed. I can keep him in the loop of what's going on. So,
Okay.
and so, where that comes into play is, do y'all do a lot of demos?
Not a ton, but we do
Okay.
some.
Yeah, the biggest thing with demos is it's easy to get them out there. It's the pain when you send somebody that you're supposed to pick it up, Friday. Inevitably, you get the customers like, no, you can't take this now. I've got a big job. Johnny told me I could have it for a month, and so you end up once again wasting trips, and it's $60 a pop every time you send somebody that you're chasing the sales reps, around them. It gets to be a pain. So by doing this, in one of the alert systems that we have out there to let the sales rep know, we look at all the open service calls that have that sales rep's job on them, and we say, here are the status of all your calls at the end of the day. And by the way, these demos are scheduled for pickup tomorrow. If you don't want me to pick it up, you better tell me today, because I'm not going to send the truck and have him walk away.
Correct.
So anyway, and we sound all tough, but we live in a world of sales, so everything is subjective. So take all my tough talk with a grain of salt. It's like at the end of the day, sales department funds the whole thing. So,
Right.
So then after we do that, then we go back in, and once the sales SSAs, they get the notification that the order is shipped. Then they come back in and they'll assign the serial numbers, and it's out the door.
Yeah.
So. But we track through our truck delivery system, by using logistics, we track rentals. If we put out a rental, I don't know if you do a lot of rentals, but we'll put out a rental. We go ahead and create a service call to pick up that rental when that contract is going to end, whether it be 30 days or whether it be 6 months from now. And the reason we do that is that the longer the rental sits, the more likely it is that we all forget about it.
Right.
And
Right.
the customer's not going to forget about not paying the bill, but if we set up a rental contract for 6 months and we start billing the guy, and then the invoices stop coming, he's not going to call and ask me if I'm going to come pick up my machine.
Right. That's right.
So we create that service call out there, and it's stuck out there in the queue, and that's why we have a truck called Pit Rental Pickup, unassigned. And that's just to make sure that we have that scheduled, and we won't forget about it when it comes out there. So, delivery, the dispatch console has been a huge friend for us in using that through the whole delivery tracking process, and then combining that with equipment history tracking, so we know the customer, and then we have the ability to be able to go out there, and what we do with our inventory reconciliation is by having that customer assigned, we have one of our reports, Darren, that we custom install for. It's called the Serialized In-Stock report, right?
Yep.
And we have like 5 different versions, but it's also a custom report. But the concept there is we go run that report every month with our inventory manager and the sales managers, and we run that report for all of our sales warehouses. In your world, you'd run the report for all the machines that have a status of install picked or whatever, right? That's still in stock.
Yep.
Because what we're looking for that inevitable accessory that got added on at the last moment that somehow didn't magically make it to the sales order, or more likely the equipment's been delivered and configured the way we thought it was going to go, and then the customer gets it and the reps come back and say, look, we forgot to put a fax board. Can you go put a fax board in that machine real quick for me, and yada, yada, yada. And that never makes it to the sales order, never comes out of inventory, and now we've lost a fax board at the end of the year. We do a physical inventory. So by running this report, we're able to see everything that's out there that's not billed, and because we do that customer tracking, we change the customer, we can say, we got a fax board here that was transferred to big old red trucking company, and it's still in inventory. How'd that happen? It hasn't been billed. So that's really where the customer, changing that to that customer comes in, is gives us the ability to run that in-stock report and know where that serial number's at, even though it's still in inventory.
Yep.
And that's where because that's the killer, is trying to track stuff that's in inventory but not in-house.
Right. Yep.
So anyway, that's
Well, here's kind of how we are doing that. When we are tracking kind of what's kind of quote unquote in inventory but not in house, I mean, if it's not here, it's been shipped.
right.
And so we're really utilizing that shipped thing, and I basically have said to the guys, hey, get that, when that pack slip is so vital, it's not the piece of paper so much as the fact that piece of paper represents that this thing has gone out the door and it's
Right.
not in our inventory right now.
So y'all are shipping in the automate, so you right-click and ship the sales order as soon as it goes out the door, and that's perfect. That's excellent.
Yeah,
Now-
that's how we do that. And then if it comes back, we'll leave an open sales order. Let's say it's a
Yeah.
demo. We'll
Yeah,
leave that
so-
sales order open, and when it comes back, we'll just reverse it. Now the history shows that when it went out and when it came back and what customer in the whole works.
Right, exactly. And that's a great process. If we do so many multi-machine orders in the way because we don't sign it, it was a pain for our order entry team to go through all those steps. Now, Digital Gateway in version 8 has a killer new way to assign serial numbers, and it's awesome. We talked about it 4 years ago, but in new version 8, the coolest thing they built, and it goes back to, we've used Digital Quote Manager from day one. We have all these processes built. We've used all these things. Digital Quote Manager allows you to push a quote straight into a sales order, then a sales order, blah, 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 ties to purchase orders. But from our world, because we do so many multi-machine orders, when you would push a quote for 10 of the same model with different accessories, they wouldn't stay associated in the sales order. So I would have quantity 5 of the host machine and quantity 3 of this accessory. It just wasn't conducive to try to, you spent more time, and you've lived inside that sales order thing, you spent more time bouncing back and forth trying to get the right serial number on the right piece of equipment to the right host and yada, yada, yada.
Yep.
What they've done, which is so awesome in the new version 8, is that you have the ability to, when you do that equipment build, which is basically attaching accessories to the machine, which is by the way, I forgot that step, we actually attach the accessories in that transfer warehouse step. The warehouse guys, as the warehouse guys pull the order, they attach the accessories to the piece of equipment in the Automate while it's still in stock.
Okay.
And once again, the reason we do that is because we have a customized delivery ticket we print out of the service call, and I'm able to show the accessories, so then the truck drivers can see what accessories are attached to what machine. So we attach the accessories. The warehouse does that, and they do that as soon as they pick that order. Because they know now all of these will go together, then they can just do a right-click transfer the host, and all the accessories follow it.
Yep.
But the cool thing is what eAutomate's done is that when you go to attach those accessories, they'll have an option now that you can type in a sales order number and select which host that this is going to fulfill, and it'll go assign the serial numbers and associate all of that to that sales order. So it's kind of like, you do it because you're purchase order linking. It's awesome. So you're ahead of us in that stage. But from our world, that way I don't have to have my my warehouse guys don't have to go through that serial number picking process and try to keep the right serial numbers with the right accessories. They can just go through that accessory build and say, oh, by the way, take this configuration and assign it to this host on this sales order, and it'll go assign the serial numbers the way you're used to doing it to the sales order.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a huge thing for my warehouse guys, because I don't like my warehouse guys having to try to do the fulfill ship thing in the sales orders because of the multi-machines and everything spread out all over the place. There's no way to associate what goes with what. And
Exactly.
so that's a huge feature in version 8 that we're just pumped about. And one of the main reasons we're moving to 8 as quick as possible is for that one step.
Yeah. No, I see that. So, okay.
But yeah, you guys are doing it better than most, for sure. What you're already doing, you're already ahead of the curve.
Okay.
And,
well, here's a question that I have. I'm feeling a lot more comfortable with what we got set up, and you've got a couple of really good ideas that I think we will just tweak a couple things on our side. But here's the question I have then. When I'm running my reports, and we're getting to the point here now, I've got it's turned into about a 14-page monthly report with it's just got stats on it galore, and everyone that looks at this document just loves it. But what I'm looking at here is I'm breaking off by each of our branches how many growth calls the techs are taking, how many incompletes and callbacks and things like that. And I guess this is more of just a general question. Do the call types of install and setup and things like that, do those, if they go out and our techs, again, we're small, so our techs are doing this work, when they go out and do this work or come into the in-house here and do the work, are those call types counted as callbacks or reschedules or things like that?
No, they're not. Here's what's cool about that. That's where eAutomate knows when you create the callback for eAutomate is calculated at the time the call's created, which is kind of tricky, right? So as soon as you create a new call, eAutomate says, "Oh, let me see if this is a callback."
Right.
And the way it does that is it only goes back and looks for a previous CM or PM call. So
okay. Yep.
yeah, a corrective maintenance or preventive maintenance. So eAutomate at that point in time is not flagging that as a callback, and you can test this because this is the way it's been for 15 years, but you know, things change and we all assume, well, it's always worked that way. Well, no. Back in version 7.63598, they changed that and you just didn't know. Because it's a hidden thing, you know, it just doesn't. But no, it doesn't. So eAutomate inherently does not account that as a callback. It just looks to see, is there a previous corrective maintenance or preventative maintenance call for this piece of equipment that falls within your callback parameters.
Sure. So,
And the same thing with a reschedule. Of course, a reschedule happens only if you incomplete a call.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's going to happen regardless of the call type.
Right.
So if the guys for some reason can't finish a call, can't finish their setup because they have to go on an emergency
Right.
call, they leave the office here, then of
Right.
course that's going to be a reschedule. So so then just to make sure then, I mean, the guys should be able to, we should be able to set up calls all day long. They're a shop call or an install call. I mean, shoot, we should be able to do those all day, and it's not going to trigger any callback percentage. It's going to treat that as a new call, correct?
Right.
Okay.
And if you see differently, let us know. We've made some of the latest tweaks we've made to our technician productivity report was specifically to be able to ignore certain call types and/or pieces of equipment that were being worked on for that very reason, because we had as we started installing that in more and more dealers, and now that we're up to 120 something, we're getting more dealers that are doing like you guys are doing. Which, hey, these guys wear two hats, man. They do it all.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly it.
And it is a call for him. Yeah, it is a call for him. Now we don't want to get into open the can of worms. What if he did 8 shop calls today? Should he get credit that as calls per day as the same way that he does for field tech calls a day? Like, oh, now you're killing me.
Yeah, I mean that is what it is. I think that'll even itself out over time.
Yeah, it does. Well, the good if
yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm just saying if all of your techs do it, then they're all being treated equally.
Exactly.
And that's really all that matters, right?
And not only that, if you got a guy that spends half his time in the shop and half the time in his field, you're going to look at that and say, well, his calls per day is going to be, his expectations are going to be a little bit different.
Right.
That's the way I guess I look at that.
And you have to be. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yep. The last question that I have here then is, when we're doing these calls, we are, I guess, we're not actually too far off. In fact, we might be doing this pretty darn close to the way we should be then after kind of listening to you and going through these processes. We set up a call for the machine to be set up and assembled. The warehouse guys in the back have pulled all the parts or pulled all of the accessories and everything's set together. We do that every day.
Right.
They come in and they grab that machine and they set that machine up. It's all working. They run 5 copies through and make sure it all looks good, and they roll it back to our warehouse. We shrink wrap it so it's ready to go for install.
Right.
When that call is closed out,
Yeah.
now we should probably, based on the way we're doing it, because there's going to be another call needed, our service technicians will assist with the installation as well, because they'll go out and make sure all of the email set up, scan email stuff set up, they'll make sure there's connectivity, all that. So we need our techs there. So we just set another call up right away. Our dispatch person's kind of like, well, when I close that call out, I lose all my contact information. So when I create a new call, how does that, they lose all that like that.
And so what we don't want to do is we don't want to use the incomplete, because that would definitely trigger a reschedule, because reschedules don't really care what type of call you came from. It's like, hey, the tech didn't finish the job. So we don't want to use the normal incomplete. Yep. So eAutomate created a cool little feature in here. And they created it for us because of this delivery process when we have to do all these multi-machine deals.
Okay.
So when you have that call out there,
yep.
Because this call is sitting here.
Yep.
So let's say the shop guy has closed this particular call on this machine. So instead of rescheduling it, I can we can right-click and copy that call.
Oh, do it right in there. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so if I copy that call, then bam, all the information copies over.
There you go. Okay. That's
And yeah, they added that one little feature because we were like, God, I've got to put 27 machines on here. They're all going to the same address with the same contact with this. This is a pain in the butt. And so they stuck that in for us in version 7.6.5. They're like, okay, we'll give you a copy call. Awesome, awesome. So, and that's about the only place that copy call is usable is in deliveries, because that's about the only time that you're trying to copy 100% of the information over from one to the next.
okay. Yeah,
And that avoids your callback. That avoids your copy call. I mean your reschedules, and so it doesn't dirty up any of your statistics.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what we're looking for. That copy call. That was a little hidden because I was looking elsewhere for it. And
Yeah, it's kind of like, the cool thing about Digital Gateway, and you're going to find this more in version 8, is, and I try to tell when I have new sales reps here and we start them off in Sales Logic, it's like, okay, we have right-click. Okay, right-click. But let me tell you, right-click is very, very sensitive to where you are when you right-click.
Right.
So depending on exactly where your mouse is sitting, when you hit that right-click button, you're going to get a different set of options, so pay attention here. Don't just write down right-click. Right-click on the call, and you'll see copy call.
Well, and that's exactly it, because I'm sitting out here in the main screen and I'm right-clicking. I'm like,
Yeah.
I see a call out here. That's kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Why can't I copy a call? Well, you just showed me where it was at. Now that'll just change the mentality entirely over this.
Right, and the cool thing about that is that call is still part of that work order, which, and in eAutomate, it's kind of weird. They have a work order paradigm. It's just not visible to any of us, but all those calls inside of that block there, let me pull that up for you here, they're all considered to be on one work order.
Sure.
And so, eAutomate has all this work order stuff. It says work order number right there, but we really I never deal with that work order hardly ever. So, we just copy that call and create that second call. Now all these are grouped together. And then in this particular case for deliveries, I would invoice them all at the end, when they're all done.
So when we're using that automatic invoicing feature, do you guys use that or no?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we use it all the time.
So how do you prohibit that closed call, the setup call, for example, and the one on your screen there? Let's say that first call there was the setup and the second call there was the install. How do you prohibit this from going to, if the service tech closes it, how do you prohibit it from losing it, losing that call?
Well, let's say if it invoiced the first call, that's okay. It's not going to invoice the second call because the second call is not completed yet.
Right. Okay.
So yeah. So but you could also set it. You could tell it to not auto invoice install calls. But at this point, I don't care if it invoices the shop call. It's not going to invoice the other one because it's not okay to invoice. It's not in the status okay to invoice yet. So.
Right. Okay.
So anyway.
Well,
Mike, I think you were supposed to be somewhere else.
Yes.
Yeah, no, this is great. This just helps me a lot here, as far as just kind of thinking through this process and stepping through it with getting a different look at it. So this is
I just want to let you know that you had already figured out 90% of this, and and that's awesome, and you are way ahead of the curve, using delivery for logistics and the PO link, and you're doing the sales orders. If I had my world perfectly here, that's what I would love our shops, our guys to do. But there's just different problems.
Right.
It's like everything. There's trade-offs. There's good to buying in bulk. The downside is that it's a little bit more in the warehouse to manage bulk.
Yeah.
Now, versus buying one off. Then man, you link those purchase orders. You got a beautiful closed loop there. I mean, it's awesome. Everything just flows through. It's just so awesome.
Yeah, the only issues we've had with those linking purchase orders is transferring them. Because what'll happen is for us, our main delivery will come in here to Fargo, and then we've got the equipment maybe is supposed to go out to Bismarck. Well, we're not staffed up in Bismarck to receive that delivery and everything else. So now that we're linked, it becomes hard to transfer, and so we've figured our way around it. But that's how we've had to deal with it. So.
Yeah, that's the only downside of PO linking while everything is still in that open status. Because when that PO is linked to that sales order and you link it, then it's going to make it okay. It's coming out of Fargo. It's not coming out of Bismarck.
That is correct.
Yep.
So we figured out how to drill down and do it, but it's taken a little bit of work and I just told the guys, I go, work or not work, it's correct. It has to be done.
Exactly. And like you said, with the volume, and guys, come on, you're not killing me. I'm not asking you to do this 100 times a day.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
so don't, you know, it's different if you have so much volume. You can't tell somebody, you know, a person doing key punch to say you can't forget this step 127 times every day. But when you have got, you know, it's 2 times this week, buddy. Come on. I wish we had the problem that you were complaining you had to do this too many times, but don't give me this, right? So.
Exactly. So, all right. Well, I'll tell you what. This has been great. I don't know if you had anything else planned that you wanted to show me. I mean, I'm always all ears. So, but it sounds like you might need to be running here. So.
Yeah. But that's cool though, Darren. And any questions, buddy? Anything you find out on the tech productivity report that needs to be tweaked to handle shops properly and all those kind of things? Just please give us the feedback and let us know. That thing has been a morphing report for the last 18 months.